Hello everyone, welcome to the daily editorial analysis brought to you by Shankar IAS Academy, 25th January 2025. Displayed here are the list of articles that we will be discussing today. The first article at 75, Constitutional Justice and Personal Liberty. In this topic, we will be discussing what is personal liberty and what are the important judicial judgments related to personal liberty and what are the landmark act passed after independence related to Article 21, and then we will also discuss the salient features of the Indian Constitution. And this article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. And the second article, Delhi and Jakarta. The article is talking about the visit of Mr. Subianto, the President of Indonesia, to India for the Republic Day, and he is the chief guest. And in this topic, we will be discussing the India-Indonesia relation and the challenges and potential of the India-Indonesian relation. And this article is taken from the newspaper Indian Express. So without much delay, let's get into the discussion. But before getting into the discussion, there is an important announcement from Shankar IAS Academy. Shankar IAS Academy's UPSC mock interview 2024 will be held in the following days. Do register and get a chance to evaluated by former UPSC board members. Now, let's begin the discussion. At 75, Constitutional Justice and Personal Liberty. The article is taken from the newspaper The Hindu. We know that the Indian Constitution came into force on 26th January 1950, but we adopted the Constitution much before that. That was on 26th November 1949. And we can see that since the enforcement of the Constitution, that means since 1950 to 2025, for the last 75 years, the Constitution, the mother law, protected the nation intact from all kind of crisis. And in this context, this article is talking about constitutional justice and personal liberty. We know that even after independence, the personal liberty of the citizens has become a matter of discussion in judiciary and in public. And the earliest example that we have is the A.K. Antony. The earliest example that we have is the A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras 1950, and followed by that we also had a lot of other judicial judgments related to personal liberty, like Menaka Gandhi case, and at the same we have Keshavananda Bharati case. So in this topic we are going to discuss more about the personal liberty, what is personal liberty, how this personal liberty idea was developed, and then we will see the important landmark judgments related to the personal liberty, and then we will also see in the second part of this topic we will see the salient features of the Indian Constitution. So without much delay, let's begin our discussion. So we know that the idea of personal liberty. Before that, what do you mean by personal liberty? So personal liberty or individual liberty can be simply explained as an ability of a person to exercise or act according to his will without violating the rights and will of another person. For example, if you want to ride a bike, then that is your personal liberty. But if you want to ride a bike at a speed of 200 kilometer or 250 kilometer, then that is not a personal liberty, because you are violating another person's right to walk safely on the road. So the idea of the liberty can be traced back to the ancient times. For example, Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, he said that if you want to enjoy the real liberty, then you should become a citizen of a state. And he believed in the human nature, that the human behavior is animal in nature, which means if there is no proper rules and regulation, then we will become, we will create anarchy. That was his belief. And even today, his philosophies are much relevant. For example, even today, if you want to consider a state as a state, then it should, it should have certain criteria fixed by Aristotle. For example, territory, people, sovereign government, and proper boundaries. Therefore, we can see his philosophy is still relevant. And coming to the medieval times, we have an important philosophy put forward by Thomas Hobbes, the English philosopher in the 17th century. And during his time, England was going through civil war, and that's why he did not believe in the good nature of human being, and that's why he proposed a concept called Leviathan. In his book Leviathan, he talked that the ruler should be absolute, but the ruler should rule based on his wisdom or reason rather than his divine claim. And the decree of the ruler will become law, and he will fix the limit of freedom and liberty to his subjects. And coming to the early modern period, we can see this person, that is Montesquieu. He proposed the idea of separation of power to prevent totalitarianism and authoritarianism. And his idea highly influenced the French Revolution. And the French Revolution was another landmark event towards our achievement of liberty, equality, fraternity, and liberty. So these principles was enlightened during the time of French Revolution. And even before French Revolution, we had American Revolution, which was another landmark even in the history of liberty. And we know that after that, in the 19th century, the people were highly influenced by certain philosophies. For example, minimalist state or limited government. That means the government should not arbitrarily take action against or violate the citizens' liberty. And the people also believed in other principles such as free market, private property, individual rights, and nationalism. And after the Second World War, we adopted in the year 1948, we adopted something called the Universal Declaration on Human Rights, which recognizes the human rights, liberty, and freedom across the world. And coming to the Indian context, in the Constitution itself, we have three important articles which talks about the liberty, the personal liberty of the individuals in the state. For example, the Article 20 of the Indian Constitution, that is protection in respect of conviction for offences. That means no person shall be convicted of any offence except for violation of a law in force at the time of the commission of the act charged as an offence. For example, if a person committed a crime in the year 2013, then he should be punished based on the rules present where in enforcement during in the time of 2030. And at the same time, if you look the clause 2 of the Article 20, we can see that no person shall be persecuted or punished for same offense more than once. That is no double jeopardy. That means no double jeopardy. That means a person cannot be punished for same crime more than once. And clause 3, no person accused of any offense shall be compelled to be a witness against himself. That means no self-incrimination. And if you look at the Article 21, that is protection of life and personal liberty, no person shall be deprived of his life or personal liberty except according to the procedure established by the law. So this procedure established by law was interpreted during the A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras court by the state of was interpreted in Gopalan versus State of Madras. We will discuss that case shortly. And the next important article is the Article 22, which is talking about the protection against the arrest and detention in certain cases. So usually a person can be detained in two ways, that is punitive detention and preventive detention. So during the time of punitive detention, a person has the right to be, right to know on what ground he was arrested, and he has the right to consult with an advocate or a legal person. And at the same time, the arrested person shall be submitted before the nearby magistrate within 24 hours of his arrest. And at the same time, the people who are detained under punitive detention also has the right to be released if the magistrate refuses to authorize his detention further, and that he should be released after 24 hours. And in the case of preventive detention, here also the detained person has certain rights. He has the right to know on what ground he was arrested, but more detail is not necessary to be given. And at the same time, he also has the right to be represented, and he shall not be, the detention shall not be exceeded more than 3 months. And the extension is possible, but only based on study. That means if still he is the threat, then the extension is possible, and otherwise the detention should not be exceed more than 3 months. So now we saw the origin of the idea of personal liberty, and then important 3 articles in the Indian Constitution which talks about the personal liberty. And moving on to the landmark cases related to the personal liberty, we can see the A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, 1950. A.K. Gopalan, we know, the prominent communist leader, he was detained and he questioned this. And this case is known as A.K. Gopalan versus State of Madras, and this happened in the year 1950. And in this case, the judiciary gave a narrow interpretation about the procedure established by law and upheld the preventive detention. That means if a person is under preventive detention and the authorities are following the procedure established by law, which means if the authorities are following the legal procedure, then the preventive detention is not violating the Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And next we have another case, that is Menaka Gandhi versus Union of India, 1978. And here the Supreme Court overruled the A.K. Gopalan case and gave a broad explanation or interpretation about the procedure established by the law. That means even if the authorities are following the law should be fair, just, and reasonable. Or in another sense, here the Supreme Court also interpreted due process of law. And also the court linked the Article 21 with the other 2 important fundamental rights, that is Article 14, right to equality, and Article 19, right to freedom. And next we have the important case, that is Puttaswamy versus Union of India case. This case is also known as Aadhaar case, and in this case the Supreme Court recognized the right to privacy, which is currently under Article 21 of the Indian Constitution. And coming to the next landmark case, that is Vishaka versus State of Rajasthan, 1997. So this case gave guidelines regarding the safety at the workplace, and this guideline later became the foundation for the 2013 Prevention of Sexual Harassment Against Women Act at the workplace. And we know that it was a landmark act, and as per this act, there should be a committee to address the problems faced by women in the workplace, and also imposed severe punishment for harassing women. And next we have the Common Cause versus Union of India, 2018, and this case legalized passive euthanasia and thereby recognized the right to die with dignity. And coming to the certain landmark act passed since the independence. The first is the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, and it was a landmark act. At the same time, it was one of the recently most controversial acts, and this gave a citizenship to the non-Muslim refugees from the Muslim majority nations like Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. And this became a controversy because people and the organizations claimed that this is discriminatory nature because it is not giving citizenship to the Muslims. So we know that the Ahmadiyyan Muslim sect, they are vulnerable. At the same time, they are minorities and they are often exploited even in Muslim majority nations. And the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 is not giving any provisions about the giving citizenship to the minority Ahmadi, and that's why there is no doubt it is the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 has a discriminatory nature. And next we have the Right to Information Act 2005, which played an important role in enhancing transparency and accountability in the government. So under this act, the people can get information from the public authority and accept critical other public institutions like NIA, Defense, and CBI. And then we have the Goods and Services Act 2017, and this introduced the GST, and this became a landmark because it consolidated and unified a single taxation structure, gave a single taxation structure. At the same time, it also boosted the economy. And the next important act is the Right to Education Act 2009, and it is under the Article 21A, and under this, the children between the age of 6 and 14 should get free and compulsory education in the nation. At the same time, this act also addresses problems like dropout, enrollment, and other infrastructure problems faced in the school by children. And then we have the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, and this code played an important role in promoting the ease of doing business, and therefore it also provided time-bound framework for insolvency procedure. Thereby, it gave more confidence to the credit providers to provide credit. And coming to the second part of the discussion, that is the Indian Constitution. Like I mentioned in the beginning, it was adopted on 26th November 1949 and came to force on 26th January 1950. And we have a preamble which talks about the objective of this constitution, that is establishing justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity. And the idea of preamble was adopted from American Constitution, we know that. And coming to the salient features of the Indian Constitution, the first major feature of the Indian Constitution is the lengthiest constitution. It has written provisions, and the reason behind the length is we adopted a lot of provisions from different constitutions in the world, and also from the the British rules. For example, we can see a great influence of the Government of India Act in 1935 in our constitution, and we also adopted several principles from the British as well as American Constitution. For example, we adopted the concept of independent judiciary from America. At the same time, we adopted the concept of preamble from America, and on other side from British, we adopted the first past the post system, and at the same time, we adopted the rule of law. All these provisions were adopted from the British Constitution, and it is a blend of rigid and flexibility, which means the Indian Constitution cannot be easily amended, but at the same time it can be amended. And the procedure for amendment is mentioned in Article 368, and the amendment can be done in two ways, that is special amendment, and the amendment can be done in two ways based on single majority, simple majority, and special majority. And in the third case, special majority with the ratification of half of the state. And the next feature is the federal structure with the unitary basis. We know that India, another sense we can say it is a cooperative federalism. It is a cooperative federalism, and but if the nation is under threat, if the nation is under at risk, then the nation itself will centralize the power under Article 352, 56, and 6. So 352 talks about the national emergency, 56 talks about the state emergency, or the emergency provisions in the light of failure of the constitutional mechanism, and Article 360 talks about the financial emergency. So what is the federal nature? That means the division of power between the central government and the state government based on the list system, which is mentioned in the 7th schedule of the Indian Constitution, which talks about three type of list. First is state list, union list, and concurrent list. State list, the matters in the state list are completely under the authority of the states. And in the case of unitary, in the case of center, matters in the center list is under the central government. And the case of concurrent list, the decisions regarding the matters in the concurrent list can be taken by both the central government and the state government. But if there is any conflict, the central government is more powerful, and the discretionary power was also given to the central government only. And coming to the next feature, that is the parliamentary form of government. We know that India, we adopted a parliamentary system of government where the prime minister is the head of the government, and he will rule with the help of Council of Ministers, and the Council of Ministers are collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. And then we also have a nominal power, that is the President of India, and all the government actions will be taken in his name, and he is the head of the armed forces, and he will sign the Treaty of Peace and War. And the next feature, that is the fundamental rights, which is mentioned in the Part 3 of the Indian Constitution from Article 12 to Article 35, which protects the individuals from the arbitrary action of the states, and ensures the right to equality, freedom, right to religion, and also the right to constitutional remedies. The remedies means if in case the authorities violated the fundamental rights, in the case of India, the individuals can directly go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will issue writs to resolve the problem, and then or restore the fundamental rights. And then we have the directive principles of the state policy. These are the directions given by the Indian Constitution to the state, to the government, when the state frames a legislation. And it is mentioned in the Part 4 of the Indian Constitution from Article 36 to 51, and it is based on the objective of this DPSP is to ensure socio-economic justice, while the objective of the fundamental rights is to establish political democracy. And on the other side, the directive principles is looking to establish socio-economic justice and democracy. So the objectives of the fundamental rights and the direct principles of state policy is very important. And we know that the direct principles of the state policy, this is adopted from the this concept is adopted from the Irish Constitution, and it is based on three important principles, that is Gandhian philosophy, socialism, and at the same time we can see liberal intellectual philosophy. And the next feature of the India is the secularism. That means there is no official religion for state, and every religion will be equally supported, at the same time equally treated by the government. And the next is independent judiciary. So the Supreme Court of India is considered as a guardian of the Indian Constitution, and at the same time the judiciary is independent because the appointment of the judges are done by the President of India, and once the judges in the court are appointed, then the removal is not easy, and they enjoy a fixed tenure, and the reduction of their benefits are not allowed during their tenure except there is a financial emergency. And we also have has certain provisions like the public interest litigation or social interest litigation, and this concept was first emerged in United States but later expanded to India, and this ensures the access of justice to everyone. And we also have certain other provisions like legal services authorities and all, which ensures access of justice to marginalized communities and vulnerable people in the society. And then we have the universal adult franchise. That means voting rights for citizens above 18 years. That means irrespective of the caste, irrespective of the social background, irrespective of the economic background, irrespective of the residential background, if you are a citizen of India, if you are above 18, if you have a sound mind, then every person has the right to vote in the election. Every person can participate in the governance. And next we have the single citizenship. Unlike America, for example, America is a federal state, but if you go to America, you will be getting two types of citizenship. First, the state citizenship. For example, if you are a member, if you are living in California, then you are Californian citizen, at the same time you are an American citizen. But in the case of India, if you are living in Kerala, Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, wherever, you are Indian citizen. So the objective of the single citizenship is to promote integrity, fraternity, and national security and unity. Coming to the significance or the impact of the Indian Constitution, first of all, democratic governance. That means the Constitution ensures a balance between the three government organizations, that is executive, legislature, and the judiciary. And the next is economic growth. We know that the directive principles of the state policy, it is looking to ensure socio-economic justice and opportunities. The liberal intellectual the principles in the Constitution provides opportunity for ease of doing business or entrepreneurship. And at the same time, we can see a social revolution in the Indian Constitution, Article 17, which abolishes the untouchability. And untouchability is punishable in any form. And finally, the global recognition. The Indian Constitution, when India was an infant state, when it got independence, everyone was so curious about India because a vast country with a huge population, and that time the illiteracy was so high because of the colonial rule, and the socio-economic condition was very background. So everyone was very curious about to know how India is going to progress in the coming days, or what will happen to India. But India, with the help of the Indian Constitution, we conducted election, we built a democratic government, we built a nation, and we showed the world the quality and the quality democratic governance with a huge population. And at the same time, therefore, it got a respected position across the world, and it is known for its adaptability and inclusivity, because we know that the Indian Constitution considers all type of population. It provides provisions to empower the marginalized communities or backward communities. At the same time, it has a power to adapt according to the changing forces of space and time. So in this topic, we discussed what is personal liberty, the origin of personal liberty. Then we saw the landmark judgments related to the personal liberty, and then we saw the the important acts in India related to the protection of personal liberty, and then we saw the Indian Constitution and its salient features. So based on our discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is: critically analyze how the evolution of India's constitutional jurisprudence, including landmark laws and judicial precedents, has shaped the balance between individual rights and the state power over last 70 years. The question is a 15 marks question, and you have to write around 250 words. And this question you can answer from our discussion itself. You have to address the evolution of the constitutional jurisprudence. That means you can write about the Menaka Gandhi case, you can write about AK Gopalan case, you can write about the Vishaga case, and then you can write about the the Keshavananda Bharati case. It's very important. The judiciary played an important role in shaping a balance between individual rights and the state power. For example, you can address in different. For example, the ban of tada, and you can also say that when the political parties in the power misuses the state, the people can approach the court under the right to constitutional remedies. So try to answer this mains practice question based on the discussion, and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Delhi and Jakarta. Delhi, the capital of India, and Jakarta, the capital of Indonesia. Delhi and or Indonesia and India are considered as natural friends because we have a shared cultural history of over 2,000 years, and we both were members of non-alignment movement in the Cold War time, and both were ruled by colonial powers for centuries, and that's why from the very beginning, even in the modern times, we can see a strong relation between India and Indonesia during the time of decolonization, and we will discuss that. And for our Republic Day celebration, the President of Indonesia, Mr. Subianto, will be visiting India. He is the chief guest, and this visit can further enhance the Indo-Indonesian relation. And in this background, we are going to discuss more about the India-Indonesian relation, the potential of this relation, and then we will also discuss the challenges in Indo-Indonesia relation. So without much delay, let's get into our discussion. First, we are going to see an overview about the nation Indonesia. The capital is Jakarta, and Indonesia, we know that it is located in the Southeast Asia, and it is one of the Southeast Asian nations, and it is a member of ASEAN, and the capital is Jakarta, and the currency of Indonesia is known as Indonesian Rupiah, and it is surrounded by many water bodies such as Indian Ocean in the west, Pacific Ocean in the east, Java Sea, Banda Sea, Celebes Sea, Arafura Sea. And it also has important straits which connect major water bodies such as Strait of Malacca, which connects the southeast sea with the Indian Ocean, and it is an important or commercial region because it is known for 60% of the world's trade. And then we have the Sunda Strait, which connects the Indian Ocean with the Java Sea, Lombok Strait, and that also connects the Indian Ocean with the Java Sea. And we also have another strait, that is Makassar Strait. So this is a map of Indonesia. It is located in Southeast Asia, and we can see it is a collection of two major islands and many other small island groups. And you can see the Indian Ocean here, and you can see the Banda Sea and the Celebes Sea, Java Sea, etc. And look into the map. This can be very useful in your prelims as well. So moving to the India-Indonesia relation, we have a shared history of over 2,000 years. And we can see a strong influence of religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Islam in Indonesia. For example, the Prambanan Temple in Indonesia depicts the Ramayana puppetry show. And this shows the influence. We know that Ramayana is considered as an Indian epic, but the puppetry show of this Ramayana is depicted in Indonesia. So that is showing how how strong the cultural history of cultural relation of India and Indonesia. And we can see not only Indonesia, almost every Southeast Asian nations are influenced by two major cultures. First is Indian culture, and second one is Chinese culture. And you can see in the medieval times, Rajendra Chola is known as Kadaram Kondan because he captured Malacca, the Malaccan Peninsula. And we can also see mentions about Swarnadhiba in the ancient books, which talks about nothing but the island in islands in the Southeast Asia. And coming to the strategic partnership, in 2018, two nations upgraded the strategic partnership, and this agreement was focusing on defense, connectivity, trade, and people-to-people ties. And coming to the defense cooperation between India and Indonesia, CORPAT is a naval exercise, between India and Indonesia, and it was held in Andaman Sea. and we also has a potential sale of BrahMos missile with Indonesia in the coming days. And you can see that during the time of, when I mentioned the decolonization time, during the time of decolonization, the Indonesia was actually ruled by Dutch. And what happened was, during the time of Second World War, this Dutch or the Netherlands was captured by the Nazi Germany, and the Indonesian colonies, the Indonesia was for some period controlled by the Germany indirectly. And that time many decolonization movements emerged in Indonesia. And in the post-war world, India became independent in the year 1947. And but Indonesia, the Netherlands refused to give independence to Indonesia and went to recapture Indonesia in the year 1949. And that time, the Asian Conference was held in Delhi, and our former Prime Minister, Mr. Jawaharlal Nehru, he asked all the major powers, including USA, Australia, and Britain, to warn Netherlands about their attempt to recapture the Indonesia. And all these powers supported Indonesia. Supported Indonesia and India. They warned the Netherlands, and finally Netherlands retreated. So we can see, even in the independence of Indonesia, India has a significant role. This can be added as an important point when you're writing mains answer. And moving to the trade relation between India and Indonesia, Indonesia is the second largest ASEAN trading partner, and India is importing coal and palm oil from Indonesia, while India is exporting textiles and pharmaceutical items to Indonesia. And we can see the climate of Indonesia and Malaysia. That means the wet humid climate, or the tropical climate, is very suitable for the palm oil production. And the two nations are responsible for the production between 70 to 80% of the world's palm oil. And at the same time, the palm oil production also has certain environmental issues. For example, the degradation of land and the deforestation, like that. So we can discuss it as a separate topic in another video. And next, recent high-level meetings. For example, the present Indonesian President Subianto will be attending India's Republic Day for this year. So this can further strengthen the India-Indonesian strategic relation. And coming to the opportunities in India-Indonesian relation, the first is strategic maritime collaboration. For example, recently, La Perouse, a naval exercise hosted by the France, was held in three important straits of Indonesia, that is, the Strait of Malacca, Sunda, and Lombok. And this exercise, India also participated. From India, we sent INS Bombay for participating in this naval exercise. And you can see in India and Indonesia recently, the security, and we that means signing a memorandum of understanding with Indonesia for new and renewable energy can enhance energy efficiency, and also paves or strengthens our sustainable development and our action against climate change. And coming to the key challenges in the India-Indonesia relations, the first major challenge is the trade imbalance. So even though we have a very good relation with Indonesia, there's a trade imbalance, and this needed to be addressed to ensure a sustainable economic relation with the island nation. And then maritime security concerns, for example, the straits of Indonesia are known for piracy, and also transnational crimes, because we know that transnational crimes like hunting animal, selling of animal products illegally, at the same time human trafficking, all these things are happening, and therefore we need a strong relation to address all these problems. And the next is regulatory hurdles, so the differences between the two nations in setting standards and regulations for products and businesses. So this has to be solved, then only we can strengthen the economic relation between India and Indonesia. And the next is counter-terrorism efforts. Both India and Indonesia faces the threat of terrorism. Therefore, enhanced intelligence sharing is very important to combat the problems like terrorism and radicalization. And finally, the infrastructure connectivity. Despite we have a strong relation with India and Indonesia, we have a limited direct flights and ship lines. So this severely affects the people-to-people ties. At the same time, the logistics cooperation between India and Indonesia. So in this article, we discussed the India-Indonesia relation, opportunities and challenges. So based on the discussion, try to answer this mains practice question. The question is, discuss the opportunities and challenges in India-Indonesia partnership, focusing on trade, defense, and cultural ties. So we have to talk about both the opportunities and challenges. So in the first part, you have to talk about the opportunities, like the potential. They are the biggest in the case of trade. They are the biggest producers of palm oil, and we are depending on coal, and they also has sufficient amount of forest resources. And you know that the colonial powers in the beginning, they went to Southeast Asia for the forest resources mainly, and they also has a very good reserve of copper. And next is defense. We know that because India and Indonesia both has shared vision regarding the security concern, security, and they have shared security concerns too. So we have to work here. And cultural ties, like I mentioned in the beginning, we have a long history with the Indonesia. That's why India and Indonesia are known as natural friends. We have a shared history since the ancient times till the colonization, and even after the decolonization, even till today. And that's why we can see the president of Indonesia is visiting India for the Republic Day. And at the same time, challenges, we can see trade imbalance. In the case of trade, we have trade imbalance with Indonesia. And in the case of defense, still we have the limited shipping lines. We have limited pact with Indonesia. And recently we can see certain progress. For example, La Perouse, the French naval exercise is conducted, and India and Indonesia are participating in this. So this has a potential to enhance the defense ties between India and Indonesia. And at the same time, cultural ties also has certain challenges. For example, the racism, or the discrimination. These kind of issues are there. So this can be addressed. So try to answer the mains practice question based on a discussion, and post it in the comment section. We will review and we will reply for your answer. Thank you. And with the first article. With this, we are coming to the conclusion for today's editorial analysis. If you like the video, hit the like button, give your feedbacks as comments, and share this content with your friends. And before leaving this channel, don't forget to subscribe and also hit the bell icon to receive on-time update from Shankar IAS Academy. Thank you. Have a nice day.